ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Sairam everyone. Just to uh, set the context for the class today, we are studying the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita called Sankhya Yoga. We have studied almost close to 50 verses so far. Sri Krishna starts talking to Arjuna, teaching Arjuna from the 11th verse onwards, the Sankhya Yoga, reminding him that we are Atman, and the Anatman is that which dies, that which is not Atman, which is impermanent. He also teaches him the importance of following the dharma of the ashrama or varna into which he belongs. Then he goes on to talk about Buddhi Yoga. That's where we are at the moment. And in Buddhi Yoga, I was talking about how we should approach action by renouncing the fruits. So let's look at the verse for today, which is the 49th verse. दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणा फलहेतवः. दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणा फलहेतवः. दूरेण ह्यवरं कर्म बुद्धियोगात् धनञ्जय बुद्धौ शरणमन्विच्छ कृपणा फलहेतवः. You just pay attention to some pronunciation related aspects. Dureni havaram karma, there are no aspirated consonants. Buddhi, in the word buddhi, the second letter, which is a compound letter made up of id and ud. And the second of those compound letters is aspirated consonant, so it's buddhi. Yoga, dhananjaya again. Yoga, id and dha there. In that, the second letter is again aspirated, same as buddhi. Dhananjaya. In the second line, buddhau, again the buddhi comes, so uddhau, the second letter is aspirated in the compound letter uddha. Okay, uddhau. Sharanam anvichha. The last letter is again a compound consonant made up of ich and ich. The second letter in that compound consonant is aspirated with ch. Kripana, no aspirated consonants. Phala hetavaha. Again, the first letter in that word is aspirated. Because the second letter in the per vargo, per class of consonants. Palahetava. Let's look at some Sandhi related aspects. Durena, there are no aspirations, no Sandhi related changes. Hyavaram, the second word, is he avaram. He and in that he and avaram are the two words. In the first word he, the e and come together to make here. E and always make here. So he and becomes here. So he avaram becomes he avaram. Karma, the stands alone. Buddhi Yoga Dhananjaya is made up of two words, Buddhi Yogat and Dhananjaya. So in the first word, Buddhi Yogat, the it becomes id because of the Sandhi, and then that joins Dhananjaya. So it becomes id, and you get id. So Buddhi Yogat Dhananjaya. In the second line, Buddhau stands alone. The next word, Sharanam Manvicha, is made up of two words, Sharanam and Anvicha, where and join to make ma. So Sharanam and Vicha become Sharana Manvicha. Pada Palahetava, there are no Sandhi related changes. The last line, last word I have just put a dash just to separate two words, though they are still combined and are together. Let's look at the word to word meaning. Durena. Dura means far, distance. Durena means what's called a third vibhakti or the third noun form of the word dura. That means with, by, through, that kind of meaning comes. So I put by distancing as a meaning. He means indeed. The he has multiple meanings. There are people who would say but and therefore and things like that. But I have used the word indeed just to stress that, okay? He, indeed. Avaram is the next word. Varam, vara means the best, superior, something which is better. It's a comparative word in the sense something is better. So vara gives that kind of meaning. Something which vara is superior. Avara means not superior. So that because of that, the meaning is inferior. Karma, action. Buddhi yogat. Buddhi yoga we already discussed. The yoga of buddhi, using buddhi while doing action, which is negating or not accepting or renouncing the fruits which are impermanent in this world. So buddhi yoga is fifth noun form. In the fifth noun form, which means gives the meaning of from. Okay. So buddhi yoga means compared to buddhi yoga or from buddhi yoga. You can, both the meanings you can be taken. So what Krishna is saying is karma becomes avaram. Action becomes inferior. How? Durena, buddhi yoga durena. When that is far from buddhi yoga, action becomes inferior. So when it is devoid of, or which is does not take into consideration buddhi yoga, or action performed without buddhi yoga, that becomes inferior. Then he addresses Dhananjaya. He is addressing Dhananjaya, Arjuna as Dhananjaya. There are various names Krishna uses. For Arjuna, in this place, he's using the word Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means Dhanam is wealth. Swami has always said that Dhanam is spiritual wealth also. Jaya means one who has won over, who has conquered, or he has obtained through effort. Dhananjaya. The next word is Buddhau. Buddhau is the seventh vibhakti or seventh noun form or seventh noun form of the word Buddhi. That means in Buddhi. In Buddhi. Sharanam. Sharanam means refuge. You surrender. Okay. Sharanam. Anvicha. Anvicha is a command. He's telling Arjuna to do something. Anvicha comes from the word anvesha. That means to search, seek. Like search for truth is called Sathya Anveshana. Anveshana is the noun of, the act of seeking something. So Anvicha means Krishna is saying seek, search for that. Search for what? Refuge in Buddhi. So he's asking him to seek refuge in Buddhi. That's an instruction from Krishna. Then he makes a statement. It's a statement which is Kripana. Kripana is something which we already saw, I think, earlier in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is calling Arjuna Kripana. Kripana means a miser, one who does not prefer to share with others what they have. So in India, I think it's called Kanjus or something like that, but it's not very popular in the West. So Kripanaha means one person who is a miser. Kripanah means plural, misers. Who are misers? Phala hetavaha. Phala is fruits or results. Hetavaha means causing. So people who engage in action for the sake of fruits, who want some result, such people are misers. This is what Krishna says. So what he's saying is, don't be someone who is seeking phala, fruits of actions. Always seek the refuge in buddhi. Because if you do not, if it's far from buddhi yoga, then action becomes inferior. So this is the statement of Krishna. We'll take a look at the summary. Action is inferior. Sorry. Indeed. By distancing from buddhi yoga. O Dhananjaya, seek refuge in buddhi. When he says seek refuge in buddhi, actually means buddhi yoga. Seek refuge in buddhi. Those who engage in action for the sake of fruits or results are misers. So we'll look at a couple of excerpts of Swami. Man has the right to perform action. To ask for the fruits thereof, he has none. This is the translation from the discourse, but I think we have already covered this. Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. God alone can dispense the fruits of man's actions. Embodiments of divine Atma. Every day from morning till night, you spend your life in merely earning the means of your livelihood. What great happiness have you attained by employing your skill and education in only filling your stomach, forgetting the lotus-eyed Lord? O man, ponder over this with deep regard. Embodiments of love. From times immemorial, Bharat, by its spiritual power, has been conferring permanent peace and happiness on all mankind. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Or may the whole world be happy, has been the goal of the sacred dharma of Bharat. In order to protect and preserve this ideal, the kings, the sages, the saints, and scholars, as also the various women of yore, sacrificed their all and led lives worthy of emulation. Sacrifice, tyaga, is the essence of spiritual life. All men must necessarily have tyaga. Although one may not be willing to make sacrifices, nature shall force him to do so. It behoves man, therefore, to undertake sacrifice even before he is so compelled. Lord Krishna stresses in the Bhagavad Gita that absolute purity of the heart is an essential requisite for treading the path of sacrifice. What is sacrifice? What is it that one must give up? Is it the transient wealth one has? Does sacrifice means the giving up of one's wife and children? Nay, they are but matters that relate to the environment conditioning man's external life. Sacrifice means giving up one's desires, kama, anger, krodha, and greed or extreme miserliness, lobha. Man generally identifies himself with the anatma, non-atma, without realizing his true nature. The reflection of the sky in a pot of water disappears the moment you pour out the water. Likewise, when you recognize the temporal nature of all that is non-atma and attribute the ephemeral existence to worldly desires, water, and give them up, you get closer to Atma. Unless you sacrifice desire, anger and greed or miserliness, you cannot attain divinity. Desire impels you to go against the established code of social behavior, even at the cost of losing your honor and reputation. It makes you get immersed in selfishness and disregard your duty to society and God. It raises its ugly hood in every aspect of your life and turns you into a demon. Anger destroys your intelligence and warps your judgment. The angry man forfeits success in all his endeavors and invites societal censure. He brings dishonor to himself, to his friends, and relations desert him. He is led to sin and thereby ruins his life. Lobha, or extreme miserliness, does not let anyone be happy. A miser neither enjoys himself nor allows others to utilize his wealth. For everything he takes a retrogressive stop, fearing loss of his property or diminution in his wealth. There's a small story to illustrate this. There were two brothers by names Miser and Greater Miser. True to their names, they were so niggardly that they did not even feed themselves properly. On occasions, when they prayed to God to further their worldly interests, they would not even proffer Naivedyam, sacred offering to God. They would merely let him have a cursory glance at it and eat it up themselves within moments. The reason for this great hurry is not to allowing the offering to remain at the altar for more than a few seconds was the fear that if the sugar candy offered as Naivedyam was kept any longer, some ants might partake of it in small quantities and thereby deprive them of the valuable granules of precious sugar. One day, news came that one of their near relations had died. The elder brother, Greater Miser, decided to offer condolences to the bereaved family in person and therefore set out early next morning by foot. He did not start immediately on the same day by bus or train, as travel by these means of transport would entail an insufferable burden by way of travel fares. After his elder brother had gone, Miser put out the lamp and placed it on his windowsill, only to be stung by a vicious scorpion. While the younger brother was suffering thus, Greater Miser had put some 2 miles behind him. Suddenly he became thoughtful and hastened back to the house. On being asked by the miser the reason for his unscheduled return, Greater Miser replied, "Oh, brother, I was worried that you may not have put out the lamp after I left. I have therefore come back to remind you." To this, miser, in spite of his excruciating pain, said ruefully, "Alas, brother, your desire to avoid wastage of oil is indeed appreciable. But what a pity how much your sandals would have worn out by this unnecessary return of yours." Greater Miser then replied, "My dear miser, do not worry. I walked barefoot with my sandals in my hands. Such is the bane wrought by Lobha." Thus, by desire, anger, and greed, man's devotion and wisdom diminish and his actions get tainted. Therefore, Krishna enjoined Arjuna to be free from these vices. Overcome delusion, overcome illusion, develop innovation and spiritual wisdom, and follow the path of karma, sannyasa yoga, the renunciation of the fruits of one's actions. In karma sannyasa yoga, we have three words: karma, sannyasa, and yoga. Karma means action. Sannyasa means renunciation of worldly taints, vasanas, and desires, and rising above attachment and hatred. Yoga means union with the divine. To Arjuna, Krishna said, "This aspect of sannyasa is lacking in you. You are still swayed by attachment and ego. None can desist from action. Man is continually engaged in action. Therefore, renunciation of action, karma sannyasa, is neither realistic nor practical. Instead, while performing action, transform it into worship. Dedicate all your actions to God and perform them for His pleasure. Such actions will place you on the path of bhakti, of devotion." Thus, Krishna initiated Arjuna into the secret of karma yoga. Karma yoga should become natural to man. Whatever be the act performed, it should elevate and ennoble the doer. It is not enough if one merely listens to something noble. One must take it to his heart and ruminate over it. Once a sage brought 3 dolls to the court of a king and asked for the best doll to be identified. A clever minister passed a thin wire through one ear of each of the dolls. The wire came out of the other ear in case of the first doll, and through the mouth in the case of the second. In the case of the third doll, however, the wire went deep inside. Explaining the significance, the minister held that the third doll was the best. It represented the man who understood and retained the true meaning of whatever he heard and put it into practice. The second doll stood for the mere prattler who did not put anything he heard into actual practice, while the first signified the worst among men, he who simply let what he heard through one ear out from the other. Students should listen to the sacred message of the Gita and imbibe it in their hearts. Recognize the truth that motivates action performed for the pleasure of God, karma yoga, is higher than giving up of all activity. They should serve society in a selfless manner without an eye for reward. Develop love for all that greed does not seize you into a state of godlessness. Also, desire and anger should be controlled to the maximum possible extent. So this is a discourse Swami gave during the summer course in 1979. It's the 13th discourse in that. It has been titled as Karma Yoga in most of the publications. One of the nice points which Swami is talking about is when we renounce fruits of action. Swami has also introduced the concept of the fruits which the Lord prefers. Ishvara Prityartha. Prityartha means for the sake of the pleasure of the Lord. So generally we sometimes have a tendency to do something and say, I am offering this to Swami. Oh, I was thinking Swami and doing this. But it's very important for us to offer anything to the Lord. We should make sure that what we offer is liked by the Lord. So we just can't do anything and say, I am offering it to God or I am thinking of God. Real karma yoga is to perform actions which will be liked by the Lord and then offer it. So I thought it's something which nicely Swami has introduced that concept also here. Yes, Sister Vani.
Sairam, brother. So there was a line in one of the slides says, although one may not be willing to make sacrifices, nature shall force him to do so. What do we mean by that? Is it like, their bad karma will come back and bite them?
See, the thing is, sacrifice, if we just, there are many different ways we can discuss, sister, but every nature actually forces everything to be given up with death. When we die, whatever we have accumulated is not with us. So we have to give up when we leave the body, number one. Then, there are other natural, see, there's a nice verse in Sanskrit, Niti Shataka, where Swami often repeats. He says, wealth will be taken by thieves, fire, or government. Uh, or person loses when the person dies. So I think there are many, even things around us, even people around us, natural forces around us are such that they may take away from us that which we have not shared with the world. So that is also a power of nature. So it's a natural law in this world that everything will be taken from someone who is accumulating, sometimes at the death also. So I thought that's what Swami has told in other discourses. So I hope that.
Thank you.
So we'll go to another excerpt which I have. Many people think why desire means poverty, accumulation is poverty. We also find so many people who are very rich in this world. They always want their wealth to continuously grow. If it doesn't grow, they become upset. So sometimes we may be the richest people in the world, but they still want to be richer. So that actually shows poverty. As Swami has said, the man who has lots of desires is the poorest in the world. The man who does not have desires is the richest. So I thought I will just mention that. So let's go into the next excerpt. In this world, there is no greater malady than miserliness. This can be understood from the history of Bharat. In Mahabharata, Duryodhana and Dushasana were very powerful and wealthy rulers, yet they were lacking in good qualities. The greed was responsible for their ruin and that of the entire clan. So wicked qualities not only ruin a person but also bring a bad name to his kith and kin. We can derive happiness only when we share with others whatever we have. Vedas also proclaim this, na karmana, na prajaya, dhanena, tyagena ike, na amritatva manashu. Authority and position cannot confer happiness upon man. Only sacrifice confers happiness. I will just pause. Na karmana, na praja is na karmana means not through actions, na praja not through progeny or your family, dhanena not through money, tyagena ekena only through tyaga sacrifice, amritatva manashu the amritatva immortality is attained. That's the Upanishadic statement. I will continue. But today we don't even find even an iota of sacrifice in man. What is the reason? He has become a miser within. The absence of the feeling of sacrifice is due to miserliness. Krishna pleaded with the Kauravas to spare at least 5 villages for the Pandavas. When he had this vast country of Bharat, could not Duryodhana have spared 5 villages? He even refused to give space enough to place a needle point. How greedy he was. Actually speaking, actually speaking, sorry, I think that was. The kingdom belonged to Pandu Raja. Dhritarashtra considered the kingdom as his property, though it did not belong to him, and refused to give Pandavas their share of the kingdom. His greed was responsible for the war of Mahabharata. Ramayana also illustrates how the greed for pleasure led to the destruction of Ravana. Ravana was very affluent. He lived in a golden fort. Lanka appeared like heaven. Because of this affluence, he developed excessive desires. In spite of being the king of the vast kingdom and having a virtuous wife, he aspired for Sita. Sita was not his property. In fact, she belonged to Rama. She was not in the possession of God, and Ravana abducted her. Sita was the daughter of Mother Earth, and Rama the fundamental basis of Earth. Ravana disregarded this fundamental basis and aspired for Sita because of his lust and greed. The quality of Ravana led to the loss of his life, kingdom, and riches. Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were also victims of anger and greed. What happened to them at the end? They were responsible for the downfall of the entire Rakshasa clan. Today, man has lost his character by becoming a slave to lust, anger, greed, arrogance, and desires. When a child is born, the lap of the mother is its school and temple. It is safe and happy in the mother's custody. Once it leaves the lap of the mother and submits itself to the world, suffering becomes its lot. Swami gives us extreme examples of desire here so that we understand the final calamity of someone who doesn't stop the growth of desires in one. Just so that we understand Buddhi Yoga properly. So the word avaram in the verse, which basically makes everything inferior. The distant we are from Buddhi Yoga, all of our actions are prone to become inferior in quality. So that's that verse. We'll go to the next one. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmat yogaya yujyasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmat yogaya yujyasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukrita dushkrite tasmat yogaya yujyasva yogaha karmasu kaushalam. I will pay attention to some pronunciation related aspect. Buddhi, I think we have already discussed. Uddhi, the compound uddha, the dha has to be, second dha has to be aspirated. Buddhi, yukto, jahatiha, no aspirated consonants. Ubhe, the bhe is second letter, fourth letter in the per class of consonants. It has to be aspirated. Ubhe, sukrita, dushkrite, the ush is cerebral sh, no aspirated consonants in this. Tasmat yogaya, no aspirated consonants. Yujyasva, no. Yogaha, karmasu, kausalam, no aspirated consonants in any one of them. Let's look at sandhi related changes. Buddhi yuktaha, no change. I've just put a dash just to separate the words for anyone who wants to read it easily. Jahad, the next one, jahatiha, is made up of two words. Jahati iha. Ti and e join together to make ti longer one. Jahatiha. Ubhe. Sukrita dushkrita is one compound word, samasa, but I've just put a dash just to separate words so it's easy to read. Sukrita dushkrita. In the next line, tasmat yogaya. The it in the first word becomes id. So id plus ya becomes dya. So that's how you get tasmat yogaya becomes tasmad yogaya. Tasmad yogaya. Yujyasva, no change. There are no other sandhi related changes in the verse, we look at the word-to-word meaning of the verse. Buddhi yuktaha. Yukta means to be united, to be joined or yoked. One who is united with buddhi. Okay. Buddhi yuktaha. Or endowed with buddhi, you can say. Everyone is endowed with buddhi, but we should be able to connect with the buddhi. One who is connected with buddhi, you can say. Jahati. Jahati means gives up, renounces, does not bother about it. Okay. Jahati. Iha. That means here means here. So here is a word which is given to creation or in this world. So a person who is united with buddhi in this world itself, he gives up. What does he give up? Ubhe. Ubhe means two. It relates to two. Ubhe is a dual word, it means two of them. Both. This is the meaning I've given. Sukrita, dushkrite. So sukrita means merit or punya, doing good deeds. Dushkrita means doing demerit or papa or bad deeds. So he gives up both sukrita as well as dushkrita. He doesn't do merit, he doesn't do demerit. So one can ask, how can, so what is he doing? Is the question. If a person has given up good deeds and bad deeds, then what does he do? Means he is not seeking either punya or papa. He does not look at any activity in this world as punya or papa. He just does not pay attention to goodness or badness of any action of that person or even other people. Why? That person is only intent on offering everything to the Lord. So what he is concerned about is what is preferred by the Lord. He doesn't even call it punya or papa. If the Lord desires, wishes to have something, then he will do that and offer it to the Lord. Because even he's not interested in the fruits of that action. He's only interested in the Lord. So that is a person who is buddhi yukta, because buddhi also is ultimately which evaluates what is permanent and what is impermanent. As far as the person who is endowed with buddhi, only he recognizes that only thing which is permanent is God. So he just focus only on on God, and he does not worry too much about what happens in the world, or he doesn't bother even to classify anything as good or bad. Okay. Then Krishna says, Tasmat, therefore, because of that, Yogaya Yujyasva. He's telling Yogaya means to yoga, fourth vibhakti or fourth noun form of yoga. Yogaya Yujyasva. Yujyasva means be joined, be connected, be connected. I've used the word yoke yourself. Yoke is, to tie a cow to a post or whatever it is called yoking. So we have to only be yoke yourself. Krishna's instruction here. Yoke yourself to yoga. Always be tied to yoga, which is Buddhi Yoga. Then he defines what is that yoga. Yoga karmasu kaushala. Yoga is, which again is Buddhi yoga you can say, or Karma Yoga can be said. Karmasu means in action. It's the seventh vibhakti or seventh noun form of karmasu, in action. Kausala. Kausala means kushala, the word kaushala word comes from the word kushala. Kushala means welfare, health. People ask about each, when you meet somebody, you inquire about their kushala. How everything, whether everything is good, how are you? How are you is asking about the kushala of the person. How are you keeping? So it's health, welfare, well-being, all that. So yoga is well-being in action or healthiness in action, we can say, or proper, which there are multiple meanings it can mean. Happiness also. We'll look at a summary. One who is united with buddhi gives up here in this world. Oh, sorry, I should have. Sorry. Both merit and demerit. One who is united with buddhi gives up here in this world both merit and demerit, punya and papa. Therefore, be engaged in yoga. Yoga is welfare, healthiness in action. That's the way I've translated it. We will read a couple of excerpts from Swami. Nature confers like heat and cold, joy and grief. In one season, cold is most welcome as a source of comfort. Another season, warmth is equally welcomed. Both give comfort to man when he needs it. Hence, both heat and cold have to be welcomed by man. Both contribute to man's comfort and contentment. Time, space, and circumstance decide their use and their value. This attitude of accepting the inescapable fact is what is proclaimed and praised as serenity, equanimity, samatvam in the Gita. The Gita says samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity, equal-mindedness, steadiness is known as yoga. This is something which we looked at last week. It is the 48th verse. The Gita also declares yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is the quality of excellence that has to characterize every act. Happiness and misery, success and failure, obstacles and obstruction, defaming and denigration, praise and criticism are intertwined. They can never be experienced singly, but man is elated by gain and depressed by loss. When praised, he is elated, when blamed, he droops. But man has to keep in mind that these are only phenomena like heat and cold. There is a prescription for mental peace and social serenity. Consider the reality of things. Mountain peaks are only heaps of rocks. The ground on which we dwell is only a mound of soil. The body we carry about with us is but flesh and bone, composite of the five main elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. New forms and names are assigned to distinct patterns of the same forces and things which demonstrate distinct characteristics. Over millennia, Bharat has been proclaiming and propagating this holistic spiritual truth and the consequential outlook of renunciation and serenity. Through renunciation alone can you attain immortality, declare the Vedas. This truth must be implanted in the mind by discriminating reason. That is why Sri Krishna says, I am discrimination in the human being. That is the distinct feature of man. In the Bhagavad Purana, it is said each living being has to journey back to the source from where it sprang. Real joy is available only there. A man may travel on business through many lands and stay in several towns in great comfort, but he does not get rest and peace only, but he does get rest and peace only when he reaches home. The earthly career is but a stage in his long journey, where he has camped for a while. The camp is not to be confused with the home, but many do and refuse to remember the home. All that concerns the Atma is delight. All that concerns the self is misery. This is the Upanishadic declaration. Man loses himself in fights and factions, greed and gain, and ignores the source, the substance which he is. The trouble starts with his habit of fixing his thoughts on something or person. The thought becomes a thorn, a theme, a trap, and finally an enslaving desire. When the desire meets with obstacles, anger wells up and emotions are aroused. which might even overwhelm the humanness of the individual. The person loses the capacity to distinguish between right and wrong and slides into sin itself. How can the mind that leads us along the path of desire, anger, passion, prejudice, and sin be kept under control? The senses which tempt and tarnish the mind have first to be monitored and mastered. Cultivate the style of speech uncontaminated by falsehood, the bodily activity unpolluted by violence, and the mental process unsullied by attachment and hatred. Also, direct the senses along the path towards God. The mind robs you of the precious treasure of spiritual wealth. Be ever watchful of its machinations. This is a discourse Swami gave in 1982 during Christmas. One more excerpt. It's a slightly longer one. Let's read that. Bharata was truthful and honest. This Bharata is the son of Priyavrata or Rishu. Actually, he's a grandson of Priyavrata, who was the son of Manu. That's the way story goes. So it's not the Bharata of Rama's brother. It's a Bharata which was born earlier. Okay. Bharata was truthful and honest. He took excellent care of his subjects. He performed actions only after thinking of God. He never did even the smallest action, like drinking water without offering it to God. At all times, in all situations, Bharata never forgot God. It is said that Bharat, India, is named after him. After many years as monarch, Bharata handed over the kingdom to his son and went to Rishikesh, where he built a hermitage for himself. Having severed all worldly attachments, he passed his days meditating on the Lord. One day, Bharata was sitting on the banks of the Ganga and watching the waves of the river. He reflected about the ups and downs of the waves being like the joys and sorrows in life. To him, the waves had consciousness. He felt that everything in creation had awareness and was a form of God. While he contemplated in this manner, he heard a loud roar, a roar of a lion. Meanwhile, a doe had come here to drink water. She also heard the roar, panicked, and jumped into the river. She was in the final stages of pregnancy. The fear and physical stress of the situation caused her baby deer to be delivered immediately. The doe was swept away in the river's current, but Bharata was able to reach out and save the baby deer. Bharata cleaned the deer, took it back to his hermitage, and began tending it with parental affection. Now, all his time was occupied in attending to this deer. If the deer wasn't in his sight, it was in his mind. Feeding it milk, collecting grass for it, cleaning it, he wasted all his time. He wasted all his time in such activities. Bharata's attachment for the deer kept increasing, and consequently, thoughts of God decreased. He thought of the deer constantly. A few years passed in this manner. When Bharata's death came unexpectedly, he took his last breath while thinking fondly of the deer and calling it by name. What is the inner meaning of this story? Bharata left his body at a time when he was incapable of entertaining elevating thoughts. His final thought was about the deer. And so, he was born as a deer in his next life. But he was able to remember his past life and the needless attachment. My mind, which delighted in the thoughts of God, fell prey to the attachment for an animal. How foolish! What a pitiable life I am leading now. he regretted. Such are the disastrous consequences of uncontrolled attachment. That is why when Bharatiyas go on pilgrimage to Kashi, we find dying people repeat the name of God continuously. No one can tell if the divine name will come to one's lips at the final moment. So these bedridden people have someone whispering into their ears the mantra Sri Rama Rama Rameti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tattulyam Ramanama Varanani. The repetition of the name Rama once is equal to repeating the entire Vishnu Sahasranama, 1,000 names of Vishnu. Whatever thought you entertain last, you will achieve that form in your next birth. The contemplation, smarana, done during your lifetime becomes your sole ornament, abharana after death. If you remember the Lord's name throughout your life, it will be easy to recall it in your last moments. Some people do not agree. They say, if we must practice japa in youth, when are we to enjoy the world? When I have nothing to do after retirement, I will begin japa. This is foolishness. Suppose a man joins the army. If he is given a gun on his first day and asked to go to battle, he will be confused. He must undergo rigorous training in a variety of martial skills. With diligent practice over many years, he will become a good soldier. For this reason, Krishna talked about the importance of practice in the Gita. Practice, abhyasa, is very essential. Even mundane activities like walking, talking, speaking, reading, writing are based on practice. We must prepare for death also by constantly remembering the Lord's name and form. Only then is it possible to recollect Him in our 5 moments. Therefore, practice, practice, practice from a tender age. This is the main significance of the story of Bharata. After his life as a deer, Bharata was born as a Brahmin. Recalling his past mistake, he resolved not to cultivate attachment to anyone. He decided that this world would be his repentance, although his mistake was made unknowingly. So he behaved like a vegetable. If anyone called him, he did not respond. Whatever anyone said to him, he didn't pay attention. People thought he was deaf and dumb, but Jadabharata was unmoved. He stuck to the faith that he was not the body. Memories of valuable time wasted in previous births disturbed him to no end. He left the city and went into the forest. He spent many years living under trees. Thoughts of God were foremost in his mind. In the forest lived a gang of robbers. The leader of the gang had no children. Someone advised him that if he sacrificed a human being to goddess Kali, he would obtain a son. So the leader commanded his henchmen to catch a healthy man for this purpose. The robbers spread out in the forest and began searching. Jadabharata was seated under a tree. The robbers found him and carried him to their leader. Bharata hadn't had a bath for a long time. He was dirty. They took him to a river and forcibly bathed him. They applied sandalwood paste on his body and decorated him like a sacrificial offering. Bharata was not mindful of their actions or reasons for those actions. The robbers took him to the temple of Kali. They asked him to sit down and he complied. They lifted a sword to behead him. As the sword was about to strike, goddess Kali appeared. She came walking from the inner enclosure of the temple and slew the entire gang of thieves. Then the mother goddess blessed Bharata with the words of advice. I am very pleased with your devotion and perseverance. Continue in this manner and establish yourself in the self. Don't worry what the world thinks of you. Be unaffected by praise and blame. Be fearless. Think of the Lord all the time. But Jadabharata did not even hear her. He was engrossed in the Atma without interruption. Then Mother Kali disappeared. Bharata walked out of the temple still engrossed in the Atma. On another occasion, Rahuguna king of Sindhu Savari, was passing by in a palanquin. Bharata was seated under a tree. The palanquin bearers found the palanquin was very heavy and accosted Bharata to lend them a hand. They dragged him from his spot and placed the palanquin on his shoulders. Bharata quietly obeyed. But before taking every step, he would make sure he wasn't stepping on any insect since he perceived the Atma in every being. Sarva Bhutantaratma Paramatma. God is the indweller on all being. This truth was recognized by Bharata. The feeling of unity that no being should be harmed was steadfast in him. Bharata's caution caused the palanquin to be slow and jerky. The king got angry. Hey men, why are you walking so strangely? The bearer said, O king, this new man is responsible, pointing to Bharata. The king turned to Bharata and abused him at length, calling him a walking corpse. Then Bharata opened his mouth. O king, not only this body, but all bodies are walking corpses. Yet the body is walking, but it's only a shavam, dead body. The one making all bodies walk, the only one alive is Shiva. Bodies are inert, the inner consciousness is God. The king heard these words and commanded the palanquin to be lowered. Rahuguna was actually on his way to see sage Kapila to learn about the Atma. He stepped down in humility and said to Kapila, himself has appeared to me here. He sat with Bharata and clarified his understanding of the Atma. Jada Bharata taught him Atma Vidya in a clear and lucid manner. Rahuguna was overwhelmed by Bharata's teachings and fell at his feet. Jada Bharata's wisdom spread all over India. His main teachings for the eradication of worldly attachments were control of the senses and sealing on desires. We should not let desires grow without limit. Desires alone are responsible for our joy and sorrow. One who desires is not a devotee. One who works with an expectation in mind is not a devotee. You must work for others, for God. You may chant the Vedas morning to night, know all the scripture, undertake various sadhanas or perform yajnas. God will not be achieved by any of these activities. This was the truth taught by Jada Bharata. These acts are only for mental satisfaction. How far is their reach? How permanent is their effect? This body composed of desires can never achieve God. Bharata recognized this truth. So this discourse, I think the date is not right. I think I will have to fix the date here. I think I didn't put the date properly. I will fix it and save it for anyone who is looking at it. I'll stop here. So I put this here because Sukrita Dushkrita, okay, Jahati. So the one who is attained Buddha Yoga is not concerned about good deeds or bad deeds. You will pay attention to them in the same way. Unaffected, they will not bother because he is ever dwelling on the thought of God, which is what Jadabharata understood. Because his compassion for a deer landed him in wasteful activities, as Swami said. So I thought it will be a good thing for us to discuss. So I'll stop here if there are any questions and if you have an answer. Sairam, sister. Vani.
Sairam, brother. Sorry, I have another question. So when Lord Krishna says, I'm discrimination in the human beings, so this is the viveka, the buddhi. Is he referring to that?
Yes, buddhi, sister. Buddhi generally is it's synonymous with viveka. It's a discrimination, you can say, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sairam, sister. Yes, Sister Brinda.
Saira, brother, quick question. The Bharata was born as deer. So I'm wondering what determines the other creatures other than the human beings, their next birth, like their previous vasanas itself?
So the good question, sister. The other animals do not have mind. They do not have mental faculty. So they generally are believed to go through the natural process of evolution. They from one cell animal and one cell organism, they grow into multiple cell organisms through a process of evolution. This is the belief in Sanatana Dharma. That's why it's believed that all of us have lived like every animal or insect or bird in this world before we taking the human birth. So that's a part of natural evolution. But human beings have a slightly advanced issue, which is the presence of mind. So human beings can get so demoted, and they have to come work and come back again, which is what happened to Jada Bharata. So that's the general belief. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you, Sai.
Yes, Sister Aruna.
Brother Sairam, I was like Jada brother story about this deer. He was attached, okay, to the deer in taking care of it and thinking over the deer, right? But at the same time, if you see some animal suffering and coming and caring with the thought of the Lord and letting it goes or doing something to like as a something without attachment, that won't cause this problem. Am I right? It as long as you have the discrimination, like as Krishna says, it's a buddhi yoga kind of without any kind of punya power. Whatever you have to do for that particular life of things is that is you think is the right way of doing things. Otherwise, everyone will ignore everything, right? As
So very good question, sister. Very, very good question. See, the thing is, there are three levels of evolution. In the sense, one who only bothers about themselves, that's the lowest. Okay. Such a person has to go to expand it to include everyone else. That is the nature of evolution. So that person has to start working for others in the world. They have to expand. That is a person who doesn't know God, who doesn't believe in God. When I say God doesn't believe, see, all of us don't believe in God. That's the reality. Why we don't believe in God? For example, Jadavarada's biggest mistake was already he thought every object in this world is God. He had come to that state. Then he slipped down. He slipped down because the deer was born not because of Jadavarada. Yes, it was in front of him. Yes, he saved it. But then at some point in time, it should not become a lifelong thing for him. Oh, it should not be longer than what is required. He saved it. That job is done. Okay. Maybe he tends to it for a few weeks. Okay. The mother deer doesn't go and feed the deer all the time. They will teach them to graze and then let them go. See, one of the biggest problems for human beings, we forget that God is also taking care of that. We play God for things which we are attached to. See, the problem is we find one thing in this world. There are millions of birds. These millions of birds are born and died. They are also attacked. They also die. People eat, animals eat. Okay. Are we going ahead and taking, if we take that as our mission, then we are stuck. God will say it's okay. If you want to do that, do. Okay. But a person who wants liberation will dwell on God because he is only worried about samastha loka. The whole problem is we narrowing our attention to only one thing. And sometimes without knowledge, see, Jadavarada was not attached. The problem was he was a devotee, great devotee, a jnani. Swami is telling this story for us to understand. Even for a jnani, a thought of when he's dying, he's thinking of the deer. right away he becomes a deer. Because Jnani, that the person who attained jnana, doesn't have to think of the deer all the time. He should see, if he thinks of God, won't God take care of it? That is why he said we don't believe in God. We should have firm faith that God is in everyone. We try to correct people without realizing God is inside that person. So who are we correcting? Are we correcting the God or are we correcting the person? So sometimes our understanding and concept of God, it's very convoluted. We justify, it's called convenient philosophy. Because if a person is worried that something is not to be looked after, they'll be out on the road looking for birds lying everywhere. Because we are sitting quietly and eating and sleeping, but there are birds suffering on the street or animals suffering on the street. Why are we not worried about those birds? Why are we not? But the thing is, human beings attach themselves and then justify. This is what creates samsara. We are born again and again. And we think. So Krishna will say, think of me, I will take care of everyone. Arjuna's problem was simply this. People will die, I have to protect them. Krishna is saying, they are already dead. Who are you? Your job is to do your job as a Kshatriya. And all that, then he's giving this lecture. He's telling, do practice Buddhi Yoga. Because the world is run by God, not by you. Understand the limitation. You yourself are living only because of me. If you don't think of me, you will also not live.
So we have to go with the limitations at the end.
We should surrender everything to God.
Okay.
We should
Thank
not play
you.
God in this world.
Good.
Okay, I think
Thanks.
this is a big problem for all of us. That's when doership comes. I am the savior. Without me, nothing will work. This is the ultimate challenge for a devotee. So we have to go to the next level. See, if you are only looking after yourself, then you should help others also. If you're not, you go on beyond that. Or we should try to go beyond that. So that is the teaching. God will take care of everything in this world. So there are many stories Swami has told about this. So in the spiritual path, attachment is a problem in the name of dharma. Okay, thank you, sister. Sister Revati, you have a question.
Yes, Sairam. I was just thinking about the fruit of actions and doing an act for the desire of the fruit of actions. And, Swami talks about Sri Tyagaraja and how he chants, like even um spiritual activities, like for our sadhana, like, Sri Tyagaraja was chanting Rama's name 96 crore times with the desire, I think, with the desire of getting the vision of Lord Rama. Maybe you can expand on that little bit. Is that, is that different? Or when we do any spiritual activity, whatever it is, bhajans, hopefully we have some desire of some mental peace or mental satisfaction. Is that desire, even that desire, we should let go? Or if even someone who is, trying to follow Sri Tyagaraja, chant God's name with the deeper vision of God. Sairam.
Thank you very much, sister. See, Tyagaraja chanted, yes, he wanted to be with Rama. Did he have a desire to see the problem? When we say desire, the problem with the desire is once you achieve it, after that we will stop working on it. We'll stop acting. That is the problem with desire. Then we will go on to something else. But in the case you gave the example of Saint Tyagaraja. Yes, Rama appeared in person for him after so many numbers of chantings, thinking of Rama. Swami has told in multiple ways how to sublimate desire. Desire is something which all of us have. So it is better to have the desire towards God because the mind has to has to have something in it. So you give the mind a form to which it grasps. Okay. Yes, that is a desire. So the mind is, but the person, the Atman, is not affected and is not waiting. See, the mind sometimes will hold on, and if it say, "Oh, when am I going to see? When am I going to see?" It's a problem. A devotee does not worry about when it's going to happen. Something is going to happen. So I think what you are talking about is, I think, discussed by Swami in the Sandhya Nivarane, where he's calling it Vidya Maya. In this world, there's Maya. This Maya is categorized into two. One is Avidya Maya, one is Vidya Maya. Avidya Maya means Maya of ignorance. Vidya Maya is Maya of knowledge. So most of the sadhana activities falls under that category. They help the senses and the mind hold on to something positive and thus not interfere with our progress. So Vidya Maya is what most of the sadhana activities which we do, including japa of name of God, wanting his vision, nothing wrong with it. But ultimately, the desiring nature of the mind has to stop. And that will stop when the Atman Buddhi is pointed towards God. So that's where dharana is. Dharana means continuous contemplation of the Lord, and the mind is totally dwelling on God. Through that process, actually, it loses its desiring nature. This is the sadhana. So I don't know whether I answered your question. So that will allow us to pivot towards the inner journey, is my understanding, sister.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
And that takes forever. Becomes Chitta Shuddhi, and all the vasanas are removed. When the vasanas are all removed, there's only one vasana, if you want to call it, vasana for God. And that's what happened to Jadabharata also. He was cleansed and he came back, and then he realized, I will only think of God. Contemplate. His life was filled for that. Sairam, I hope. So if there are no questions, we'll close the session. Sairam, everyone. Om Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Samastaloka Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sairam, everyone.